What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be taking a little bit of a look at some new Saurian Republic creatures from the upcoming Worlds Collide expansion. And ladies and gentlemen, let's not bury the lead here. Gargantadon is the largest creature we have seen in the game so far. Gargantadon is, as the name might suggest, gargantuan. It is huge, ladies and gentlemen. It is a 16 power creature, which beats the previous record held by, pause so you could have a go if you want to try and guess it, Khalifi Dragon, that was a 12 power creature, followed up by, from Age of Ascension, Lollop the Titanic, an 11 power creature. But you see, both of those had significant downsides. Khalifi Dragon could only be played if you had 7 amber or more, and Lollop the Titanic deals no damage when attacked, only when attacking. So we assume that Gargantadon is going to have some downsides, and unfortunately it does. Firstly, it enters play stunned, which isn't exactly all that unfamiliar. We've seen a couple of big Mars creatures enter play stunned before, like Zorg and Yxili Dominator, for argument's sake. Of course, they won't be in Worlds Collide because Mars isn't, but they're still examples of creatures that enter play stunned. That's not good. And Gargantadon only deals 4 damage when fighting. See, this is also quite upsetting, and again, we've seen this with creatures before as well. There were a couple in Age of Ascension. Roxador springs to mind. A 4 power creature, but it only deals 2 damage when fighting. So, pretty gosh darn significant downsides to playing Gargantadon. However, each amber that would be stolen is captured by a creature controlled by the active player instead. Now, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but that sounds an awful lot to me like stealing is turned off when Gargantadon is in play. You see, generally speaking, you steal an amber, your opponent loses 1, you gain 1, job's a good 'un. With Gargantadon, a friendly creature captures the amber rather than stealing, which means when your opponent tries to steal 1 of your amber, it goes onto 1 of their creatures instead. And remember the rule, when you knock out a creature with amber on, you get the amber, which means your opponent never really gets the amber. They steal it, but it doesn't get stolen. It goes on to 1 of their creatures, and then it goes back to you when you KO the creature, and they take the amber away temporarily, but they don't get to keep the amber. And this makes a huge difference, right? Because if I ask you, Shadows or Sanctum, who's the better house? If you've been playing Keyforge for a while, you're probably gonna go for Shadows. Shadows steals with stuff like Too Much to Protect, and Sanctum captures with stuff like Vault Keeper. And there are very few people that are going to argue that Sanctum is better than Shadows, and there are very few people that are going to argue that capturing is better than stealing. Incidentally, I said Vault Keeper, I meant Gatekeeper, though Vault Keeper is actually really good as an anti-stealing card because it says your amber cannot be stolen, which is quite nice. I love this. If you're against a deck that relies on stealing, this is absolutely phenomenal for stopping them. They will take the amber away from you, but you'll be able to get it back. Just destroy their creatures, play a bit of a board wipe, do what you need to do, ladies and gentlemen, and that amber goes straight back to you. Of course, it is very much worth pointing out here that if you are playing a deck that does rely on stealing, this is going to be massively, massively counterintuitive. Sorry about that. It's the way it is. Although might I suggest putting the amber on Gargantadon, who is a 16 power creature. Of course, it's not just for that, because if you can get this, and we don't know if it's going to be in the set, as I keep saying, we never know until we get a full set list. But what if you can get this in a deck with Might Makes Right? Might Makes Right is the Brobnar card we got in Age of Ascension, and even if it's not in the set, it can come in as a legacy card. You may sacrifice any number of creatures with a total power of 25 or more. If you do, forge a key at no cost. If you've got a deck with Gargantadon and Might Makes Right, woohoo, that's gonna be fun. But there are some other Saurian creatures we need to look at. How about Draco Praeco? 4 power, 0 armor. You may exalt Draco Praeco. If you do, choose a house, enrage each creature of that house. Now, we do need to remind ourselves what these do because they are new mechanics. Exalting is the potentially bad one. You take an amber and put it onto Draco Praeco, and you do that from the common supply. But then if your opponent takes out Draco, you see them gain an amber. You basically put an amber on you, and if they can knock out your creature, they get the amber. That, ladies and gentlemen, is an upsetting turn of events. Boo, hiss, etc. That ain't good, ladies and gentlemen. That ain't good. We do have ways around it, however. Chant of Hubris is a card we know is coming, and that allows you to move an amber from one creature to another. So if you can exalt and then play a Chant of Hubris, you can essentially move that amber to one of your opponent's creatures, and then when you destroy that creature, you get the amber. That's pretty gosh darn nice. But you then enrage all the creatures of a particular house. And with enraging, what you do is you put a rage counter on them. And then the next time that creature is used, it can only be used to fight. And then they lose the rage counter. But let's say you're against Shadows. Well, they've got plenty of creatures that don't want to fight. Shadows creatures generally don't love fighting. And again, we don't know which ones are going to be in the set. We don't have a set list. Umbra loves fighting. When it fights, it steals an amber. But Yancy Gang doesn't want to go fighting because it's got an action that steals an amber. And Shadows creatures tend to be kind of weak. So if you can play this and exalt yourself and then enrage all of your Shadows creatures, that's pretty good. Of course, you really need to try and get something like a Chant of Hubris down afterwards, because if you exalt a creature and then enrage all of your opponent's creatures, the chances of them knocking out a 4-power creature with no elusive when they have to fight and they can't do anything else, that's kind of high. And finally today, Orator Hissaro. 3 power, 0 armor creature. It has got that deploy keyword skill from Age of Ascension, whereby you can put it anywhere in your battle line. And when you play it, you ready and exalt each of its neighbours. Now, we've talked about exalting. You put amber on from the common supply. Your opponent can knock them out to get the amber. You could well be handing your opponent 2 amber. That is bad. For the remainder of the turn, they belong to House Saurian. I love this. I adore this. Worst case scenario, you reap with the pair of them, and you get 2 amber now, and your opponent gets 2 amber at some point in the future. You both end up with 2 amber, but you just reap and get the amber now, whereas your opponent has to take out those 2 creatures at some point in the future after dedicating resources to destroying the creatures. You get the benefit now, they get the benefit in the future. I am down with that. And that's if you just reap with them. If all you want to do is reap with them. But there's so much more you can do, ladies and gentlemen. There's so much more fun that you can be having with any kind of creature. How about you go for Comms Officer Kirby? Now, that's a lovely creature in the Grand Star Alliance. When you play Fight or Reap, you may play a non-Star Alliance artifact, upgrade, or action card this turn. So now you're still reaping. You're still getting that amber that you get from reaping, except now you're also getting a bit of house cheating as well. And you get to do what I love doing here, which is you're using a Saurian creature to use a Grand Star Alliance creature to play a card from your 3rd house and then you're actually using all 3 houses in a single turn. Yes, you have to exalt 2 of your creatures, and that's sad, blah, blah, blah. But more than that, ladies and gentlemen, what you're really doing here is getting 2 extra creatures out of turn. Now, it doesn't ready them, so if you put it down next to Saurian creatures, either they were ready anyway, or they're not ready and you can't use them. You really do get the most advantage here by having 2 non-Saurian creatures next to each other, and then popping it down next to those and using both of them in one go. But you can plan your battle line when you're playing creatures to make sure that happens. I think this is an exceptionally good card that is going to give you a rather gigantic advantage. Love it, ladies and gentlemen. Love it. So there we go. 3 new Saurian creatures, including, by a bit of a margin, by a third, the most powerful creature we've seen so far. And I'd like to know what you think about all of these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk about games. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio. Yeah, it's named after the other channel. If you feel like supporting the channel. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching Wossy Plays.